Okay, so the goal, I guess, is to plug empymod into the inversion side of SimPEG.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Where?
Well, yeah, or maybe we could start like this, like you tell me what you would like to do, and I tell you what I had in mind or what I don't have in mind, and then we can see. Because I don't know, I guess you have which plan, which I don't know where you will steer SimPEG in the near future. For instance, what is left for you to do before you go, or for Sogi before he leaves, or you have an idea where the path goes for the whole package.
Yeah, so longer term, I think like actually breaking up a lot of the pieces is a big part of the plan. Right now, it's like one ginormous package, a lot of things going on, and so it's not transparent how to actually sort of plug something in because it is so big. So, for example, pulling out, we've done a lot of work on defining objective functions. And so just having that as like a simple piece on its own. And we already sort of did that with discretize, like pulling out the meshing side of things. And so, yeah, I think that's going to be a helpful step in being able to plug in other packages.
Also, in order to maintain it easier.
Yeah, and then to be able to interface to groups like PyGimli. Right now, like both of these packages are doing similar things, but it's really unclear how to collaborate because they're both just massive. Yeah, and so there's pieces like mappings actually. So what we call a mapping in SimPEG is basically anything that takes a set of parameters and puts that on as physical properties onto a mesh. So if you're going to invert for log conductivity, we have an exponential map that takes you from log conductivity space to conductivity. Is a simple one. But then that also holds for if you want to do like a parametric inversion or those sorts of things. That's where that whole piece comes in. And so that's actually like, it should be a standalone package.
Yeah. They do a lot
so, like,
as well, no? PyGimli.
Yeah. So like that's a place that would be great to overlap with them is because they've done a lot, I think, on looking at coupling like fluid flow and electrical measurements. And so they've a lot of thought into like Archie's law or similar style inversions. Yeah, and so what I could see being an exciting opportunity here is like a first pass at what pieces do we need to expose and have cleaned up for you to be able to plug into. And like, yeah, using this as an opportunity to explore like, yeah, what pieces need to be exposed more easily. And if there are assumptions that we're making in the way that we're doing the inversion that need to be rethought because we're using a different forward modeler, it's a timely thing to do for us. So.
Is that your goal list before you leave? My to-do list before, or not realistic and just you start with it?
Yeah, I don't think it's realistic to have all of the pieces pulled apart necessarily by then. Like I still plan to continue working on this even as I move to Berkeley. So in terms of like, what I think will help here working with you is prioritizing what needs to be done. Yeah, because there's lots of different pieces. Like right now, I'm sort of thinking that mappings and objective functions are the first two things to pull out. And this could be an interesting test case to see if that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. So, and I guess you have a thesis to write, no?
Yes.
Just put it in the back. Yeah.
It's just fun. Yeah, exactly.
No, That's cool. As I told you, for me, the whole empymod thing was my postdoc, and then a couple of months afterwards, as I had no work, and the whole thing changed now as I'm employed, and I'm mainly doing it in my free time, and it is a very interesting thing for me, and would be great to have an inversion routine. But let's say it's not important enough to me that I would just start and write one on Saturdays and Sundays, because there are a lot of packages that have it. There are a couple of possibilities. There would be checking what SciPy has integrated in minimization functions. Look at Occam from scripts if this could be wrapped for Python, or work with a project like yours with SimPEG or with PyGimli. And therefore, for me, the main interesting thing is not actually even with you guys. It's not necessarily the inversion, but just to see what work would be involved to get it there. How much work would it mean for you guys? How much work would it be for me? Because my idea, if we wouldn't have met, something like this would have been, well, at some time, maybe I find an interested student who would do that as a student project.
Yeah.
But then if I see with you that it's quite straightforward, a few days, then yeah, let's do it. If you see, well, we know how to do it, but it will take a couple of weeks, then I would again refer to, well, I look for a student that is interested in programming and electromagnetics. So for me, yeah, the interesting thing is to see, as I've never looked into the internals of SimPEG. I don't know how detached the inversion is, how much it would mean to plug something else into the inversion. And yeah, so what I thought is probably the easiest is if we try to integrate empymod into SimPEG, so you can load it and run the inversion. And if that works, I could still try later on to extract the necessary bit, write a wrapper, so I could also use empymod and call SimPEG, so the other way around, but that kind of a second step.
Yeah.
First step, if you use SimPEG, you create your survey layout, and then you define a 1D model that it would call the 1D modeler instead of the expensive, let's say, 3D modeler. That would be kind of the ideal case, I guess.
Yeah. So like I actually, sorry, I'm getting a bit of in terms of getting like a first pass up and running, I don't actually want it to be too complicated. The biggest things that we need, like we need the forward model to be able to produce data, obviously, but then we also need, so that would be a bigger piece.
But you also need, you also need, you need data, but you also need
sensitivities.
Sensitivities, yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm getting a bit of mind refreshing your.
Pardon? It's interrupting at the moment.
Yeah.
Is it me? Is it you?
Now I'm getting a bit of feedback from you, I think. Maybe it's okay. Now it seems to be okay.
Let's check it again. I can hear you now.
Perfect. Yeah, so do you mind trying to turn it down just a touch, and we'll see if that is better? Yeah, that seems to be okay. So data and sensitivity are the biggest things that we need. There, we should actually plug it in directly. Like, I think the easiest way to do it would be if we can get a script or a Jupyter that we can play around with the various relay model.
Kind of easy, even an easier version than Soge's marine EM model, not just a basic 1D case, and try to invert it.
Yeah.
So do you have a sensitivity function in your package?
No.
Yes, that's a fairly big step.
I don't have derivatives nor nothing like that. It's pure forward modeling.
So do you have some sort of vision, like how do you want to get that? Like, do you want to just use a simple perturbation, or like what's what do you want to do for that?
Yeah, I was thinking more, yeah, do it like the derivative numerically from the difference and the sensitivity as well. I guess it's much more expensive than doing it analytically, but it's still comparably fast because it's a 1D model, so you have to forward model very fast calculated. If I remember right, what we used to do back in PGS, the inversion, the 1D inversion, as well, they used to calculate the derivative with a small perturbation, plus minus, and take just the difference. The empymod was based on the code by Jörg Hunziker, and he, a year later, published an inversion code where he derived the derivatives analytically. So it would exist and it could be implemented. But again, that would take more than a day or two to implement and more than all to test it and check it and verify it and make sure that it's correct.
Right. But doing a perturbation method, that's at least
it would be a first step, yeah, and then it could still be replaced with analytical derivatives.
Yeah.
If that's the case, I implement it.
Yeah.
How do you do it with the other four modelers you have? You have analytical stuff for everything.
Yeah, so far we do.
Okay.
But there's no reason that we can't work with a perturbation method. Like it doesn't, under the hood, the inversion doesn't care how you get the sensitivity as long as the method applies.
But so your pieces of inversion, they require the model and the sensitivity.
Yeah.
And not the model and internally it derives the sensitivity. No, you provided both.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And really for this sort of layered model approach, then finite differences, I mean, they work. I mean, that we had done some airborne 1D work with just finite differences. That was fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, like in terms of structure and just making sure that we can interface reasonably well and reasonably smoothly, like that's the way to start before we even think about trying to derive complete sensitivities.
Yeah, put more work in the modeling. Yeah.
And getting from
user facing.
I was just going to say, just getting away, getting from A to Z in the sort of simplest possible way is by far the best, right? Then you kind of got through, what you're up against, what the weak parts are, what the strong parts are, and then you can hit it again later.
Exactly, because lots of the twiddling in the user-facing thing is for rotated dipoles and arbitrary length and blah, blah, blah. But if you just start with an X-directed source, X-directed receiver, frequency domain, then it's from the empymod side, it's really one function you call and that's it with all your layer parameters. And once this is working, then it could be just extended step by step.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things we can do to get moving, so we have like the SimPEG organization and you have the empymod organization. One of the things that we've been talking about doing is setting up like an open geophysics organization on GitHub, and having that be a place where we can collaborate on some things. I think eventually we might actually put some of the pieces that we pull out of SimPEG into that, but that's a little while. But what we could do is actually just start like a joint repo there that's actually just a scratchpad, and we can at least sort of be tied into one thing and work on a script or a notebook or whatever is easiest to, to start with something simple.
Yeah. I don't know, like you as a group, how do you start new things? How do you interact? Is it more everybody does his thing and then it shares and you interact? Do you check, or you start in a joint notebook, or?
Often, well, it's a bit of a mix depending on what people are up to. Do you use Slack at all?
Very little. I'm signed up. Every 2 months I log in and check if there's anything important I missed. I can use it. Yeah, I can log in more frequently, I guess, but I'm not very good on social media.
We do have a Slack group, and that's actually like one of the ways we sort of check in is just messaging each other. Are you on the SimPEG one, or I don't know if
No, I think I'm just in the
like the
what's it called? Format, the underground.
the Swung Software Underground.
Exactly.
Okay, I will add you in my emails.
Let me try to log in, then I can see Slack.
Or actually, we have the same like sign up thing that Matt Hull created. So if you, let's see if this messaging thing works. So if you go to that URL, did that come through? In the chat. In the chat window, I just sent through a URL.
Yeah.
It's just slack.simpeg.xyz. If you enter your email there, it'll send you an invite to the Slack group.
It's simpeg.slack.com.
Slack.simpeg.xyz. That's like the invite.
FYZ.
X. Did that work?
Slack.simpeg.xyz. Ah, yeah. Spelling.
Okay. Perfect.
XYZ. Doing something. SimPEG at the moment, it's taking long. SimPEG at the moment is not having anything 1D, like potential or it has, no? And
yeah.
SimPEG is everything 3D meshes.
Well, we use the cylindrically symmetric mesh, and that's actually pretty fast for 1D modeling.
It's running. So.
Oh yeah, and then Soggy wrote a 1D modeler.
Okay. And this one has also the capabilities for inversion.
Yes. This is for like a loop, it's just for inductive source.
Ah, I saw that one. Yeah.
Very like a kind
of
for airborne EM.
But so the inversion could follow that scheme more or less.
Right. So it actually like it's not a PD kind of like it's not a discretized code. It's actually like solving a similar way that you probably solved the empymod, but it's for very specific application.
I think I should have received an email.
Yeah, but parallel almost exactly.
Yes.
What you did.
Yes. Should be.
Okay, now I have to join the Slack workspace SimPEG, and I guess then I can there log in. And
yeah, so that's just like one communication channel that we have.
Okay.
So that's a great place to, like, I'm almost always on there. So that's a good place to ping if you're working on something and have some questions. But maybe, okay, so if we can set up the Open Geophysics organization, and then maybe just like we'll create a SimPEG empymod scratchpad.
Okay.
And then like,
I guess I will create the simplest model I could think of, and with the code I would use, the bits I would use for the empymod description. Also because there's the resistivity, anisotropy, electric and magnetic permeability, horizontal vertical. I guess we should fix everything and just go with resistivity at the moment and look how we can invert for resistivity. And so I will describe the parameters, and then I guess there will have to be a big chunk of parameters you just pass through, like all how to do the Hankel transform, this stuff. So this would be just a dictionary to pass that the inversion passes to the forward modeler, and then yeah, I guess at the beginning it would be invert for one value, or no, one parameter, that is resistivity. So I would set up a notebook or something with the simplest possible case. Also, because if you just use the empymod by default, it will do a lot of input checks.
Okay.
And in inversion, we obviously want to make sure we put in the right stuff, but avoid all the input checks, so we don't do that 10 million times an input check.
Yeah, and maybe let's actually try like a few layers in the model, just so we can make sure that
yeah, like 20 layers or something like this, I think.
Yeah.
Occam uses the scripts Occam use by default something like 20 layers, something like this to find an adjustment.
Yeah. So something like that.
What like inversion algorithms you're actually using in SimPEG? What different kinds you have?
We usually use most of them use a Gauss-Newton approach.
Okay.
And we have a whole bunch of different styles of regularization that you can play around with as well.
And you wrote it yourself, or you use a package?
No, we wrote that ourselves. Yeah. So that's one thing. Like, we're also long-term sort of going to reevaluate, like integrating a little more with SciPy, but there's enough things that are sort of different that it's helpful to have our own. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes.
Or with PyChimney, or with which one is more closely to SimPEG, the PyChimney or the Fatiando a Terra? In kind of principles, layout, language.
I would. I think I would say Fatiando is probably a little closer.
Okay.
Like that's, I guess, a hard thing to answer. It depends on like what piece you look at.
Yeah. Fatiando is more for seismic and potential, right? And not electromagnetic at all.
Yeah, it's mostly potential fields. PyGimli is they're very good at DC and at flow. Their side of things, they have 1D, I believe. I don't know how involved. I don't know what they can do with sources for that.
Mm-hmm.
But they won't scale to 3D.
Yeah. No, I saw they have a DC example there with inversion 1D, but I didn't.
Yeah. So on the electrical side of things, they've got some good stuff in there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So if you follow the simple plan, so you think it's a lot of work for you adding something new, or?
It shouldn't be. No, I mean, I think if we can get the, as long as we can wrap it so that it's not hard for us to get data out and then be able to do a finite difference, it should not be too involved to actually get an inversion set up and running. So,
okay.
And if it is, that means that we have some things to learn, and that's okay too. So.
Yeah, and I guess in this case, it's probably good if it's iterative. So I give you first an example of the most basic case I would do, and then you write how to integrate it, and then I can take that piece, see how you integrate it, and try to expand it from my side, and like this you can do a couple of back and forth.
Yeah, I think.
But you probably also have to just focus to get it running, and then if someone is interested, he can extend it, because then you will get to so many things. Even though it's 1D, you could have the layer shifted, you can have how many parameters are free, how many, and even more interesting, because you have all the surveys, so you can have topography. So how would you handle that in a 1D inversion? Would you just adjust the top layer, or would you just adjust all the depth? Or I think these would be questions to be asked.
Yeah.
Later on, if you come from 3D and have to reduce to 1D, which is kind of, okay, how do I do these things? I don't know if you did stuff like this with other 1D things you did.
Yeah, there's been a lot of work done in GIF tools on that style.
Okay, great. So that's kind of ready.
Yeah, it's like the quasi.
Just came to my mind now half an hour ago when I thought about, but you have 3D, so you have all on different things I never thought about. So you have all on different depths, and then you have to take decisions and all about, okay, so that's all handled.
Well, there's some of it will be handled in SimPEG, but as long as we can get sort of the first pass inversion up and running, then being able to play with these things is opens up some doors.
Yeah. I think the other thing that's interesting about empymod is really all of the variables that you manage to put in. So it's very, very general, which then kind of brings me back to using this as a base for inversion. Now, here's probably where we actually want to stick with just finite difference derivatives, because calculating analytic derivatives for all these things with anisotropy or various other combinations of parameters, that would be a nightmare. So you just set it up so that you do finite difference derivatives, and now you can start to explore the effect of all of these different parameters. So that makes it a very, very rich format under which to investigate a whole bunch of problems. So I'd be really excited.
Yeah, I think it's great that it could also save you time by first running a couple of dozens 1D inversion for different cases, and then decide how you want to build up your starting model in 3D or stuff like that. There is a lot of stuff that, I mean, a simple 1D model takes you a couple of milliseconds, if a lot, and well, however simple your 3D model is, it's going to take a little bit longer than that, I assume. I never tried it.
No, it'll take longer.
And for me, one of the equally interesting part is how easy it is, because you always say open source is great, it's everything there, you can just use it and plug it, and to see how easy or difficult it actually is to bring just two projects together.
Yeah.
I don't know. We will find out, because everybody writes so differently code, even though it's all Python, but it's just like
and on that note, actually, one thing that we should keep in the back of our minds if you're game, it could be fun to actually do a sci-fi talk on just like integrating two packages and how that works.
Something like that. Mm-hmm.
So we can give that some thought, see how things go.
The good points, the bad points, and what to avoid for.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Dieter. I will set up
It's open geophysics. On what is that? You said on GitHub?
I think it exists. It may or may not exist yet. But yeah, we'll get an org going and can start putting some things there.
Yeah. Okay. And well, then you say hello to Rowan.
Yeah. I'll see what's up. It sounds like he's been caught in meetings all day, so.
Got he stuck in the snow? No.
Yeah, probably. Frozen. So.
Yeah. So what's the forecast for the foreseeable future? The same or?
Probably lots of rain.
Lots of rain. So in Vancouver, it's not snow, it's too warm.
Yeah, once we did get a bit of snow just before Christmas here, which is always entertaining. The rest of Canada gets to make fun of us because all the roads shut down because there's 2 snowplows in the city. So it's a bit of a mess.
So Vancouver is not used to snow because of the sea. Or okay. Okay.
Yeah. So winter here is generally pretty wet. Do you guys get a lot of rain in the winter?
Pardon?
Do you get a lot of rain in the winter or not so much?
It's dry season. We haven't had rain in 2 or 3 months.
Oh wow.
It's bad. It's bad because Mexico City is in this pot, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't rain for months, and that's when the contamination is really getting bad. Mm. So you have a lot of particles in the air. You have restriction on which cars are allowed to drive, and it only will start to rain in probably May, June, and then it rains daily, every day at 4 o'clock, 4 or 5 o'clock it rains. but then it cleans every day, and then you don't have this problem of contamination. And in the winter, there's basically no rain.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, we're pretty impressed with how clean the air was when we came down,
Yeah.
because the previous times that I've been to Mexico City, it was there was a big impact just as the plane was coming in, because you just look over Mexico City and it was just this yellow stuff that was.
But when was that? Was it long ago, or?
That was quite a while ago. That was in 2012 when I was there.
Not that long, because I think really bad it was in the 80s or something, but then they moved most industry out of the valley, and then it proved otherwise. But yeah, the problem is really two things: the topography, that you have all the mountains surrounding it, and then you're very high. You're on 2,200 meters, so the air is thin, so you need less contamination to be to have the percentage up. And so these two things, with no rain, is just, yeah, it accumulates. So you came in November.
Yes.
It's kind of the end. There was still the occasional rain. Did you have any rain when you were here?
No, I don't think we had any.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so it was just the end of it.
Yeah.
So you had the good time. It was still relatively clean, but no rain, so you were not getting wet. So you had to...
Perfect. Well.
Actually, November is, I often say to family and friends, they should come in November, because there's the Day of the Dead, and then, yeah, there's not too much rain, and it's not too dry yet. So that's not dry. It's really, the humidity here goes down to 20%. Yeah. So I, like me, who am not used to it, or you too from Vancouver, I get a throat that is, together with the contamination and the humidity of down to 20%, you really feel it in your throat, that it's very dry.
Yeah.
So that means you can't exercise outside? You shouldn't go running or something like that at this point?
They recommend you shouldn't during daytime, yeah. Shouldn't in the evening.
Well, you can always come up here, Dieter.
But not now, when it's just raining and only is 8 hours of sun, or 6 hours, or how much sunlight you have a day.
Well, sometimes it's pretty much sunny.
That's true. But how long do you want to run? Like 6 hours, isn't that long enough for you?
Yeah, I probably would prefer Calgary. At least it's white snow. No, it's kind of, it makes the day a bit brighter than just the rain. Because I used to live in Edinburgh in Scotland, and there it's the same. I was always so jealous of the places where they had snow and not just rain.
As long as you get a good jacket. You need a good jacket in Calgary.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Cool.
All right. Well, thanks, Dieter. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, yeah. So I really have to see how I get. I think next 2 weeks hope I can do some stuff, send you some stuff, and then all of February my mother will come with her husband. So I'm basically off. I'm at work, and and the off time I'm off with my mother. But I hope if you could get it going in the next 2 weeks, then before we forget everything we talked about today, then that would be great.
That sounds very good. Cool.
Cool.
Well, thanks for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank
You too. Nice to meet you, Sophie.
Nice to meet you.
Let's see once we meet once in person.
Yes.
Or here in Mexico. Take care, guys.
All right. Take care.